You ever read something in an old text that just makes you stop and go, wait, what? One of those lines that seems to completely flip what you thought you knew? Well, Jesus said something just like that to a woman at a well thousands of years ago, and honestly, it's a puzzle people are still trying to figure out. So let's dive in and see if we can unpack this thing together.
Our story actually kicks off not with the puzzle itself, but with the aftermath. You have this woman running back to her town, absolutely buzzing with excitement from an encounter that she just has to tell everyone about. I mean, she just had a conversation that completely changed her world, and it all started with a simple request for a drink of water. So picture this. It's the middle of the day, hot, and a woman from a region called Samaria comes to a well to get water, all by herself. And sitting there is a Jewish man, Jesus, who does something that was, for that time, completely out of the ordinary. He actually talks to her.
Now, to really get this, you've got to understand how radical this moment was. Back then, Jews and Samaritans had this massive cultural and religious divide. They just didn't mix. So for a Jewish man to start a conversation with a Samaritan woman, in public no less, was a major, major break from all the social rules.
And believe me, this wasn't just idle chit-chat. The conversation pivots, and it pivots fast. They go from talking about physical thirst and actual well water to something way deeper, something spiritual. Jesus starts talking about living water and worship and the very idea of salvation itself. And this is where it gets really interesting.
So the woman is trying to process all this, right? And she brings up one of the big arguments between their people, where the right place to worship was. It was her way of trying to bring this pretty intense conversation back to something she understood. And it's right then that Jesus says something truly pivotal.
And there it is, right in the middle of this incredibly inclusive, boundary-shattering conversation, Jesus drops this line, "Salvation is of the Jews." Now, on the surface, that sounds super exclusive, right? Almost like it contradicts the very thing he was doing by even talking to her.
So that leads us right to the core question here. What on earth did he mean by that? Was he opening a door just to slam it shut again? Was this amazing offer of living water only for a select group? The answer is a huge no. But to get why, we need to look at the very specific role the Jewish people played in God's plan.
See, Jesus wasn't making a statement about who is in and who is out. He was talking about a historical role. He was pointing to the fact that God had chosen the nation of Israel to be the caretakers, the custodians of his rescue plan for the whole world.
The Apostle Paul actually nailed this idea down later in the book of Romans. He said the Jewish people were entrusted with the oracles of God. Think of them as guardians of a sacred trust. They were the ones chosen to receive, to write down, and to protect the story of God's plan for humanity.
And check this out. This slide breaks down just what that trust involved. It wasn't just one thing. It was the whole package needed to set the stage for the Savior. You've got the covenants, the law, the promises, the family line of the patriarchs. It all led to one place, providing the human ancestry for the Messiah. God chose a specific people and a specific place to introduce his rescue plan.
And this just shows that none of this was an accident. It wasn't a plan B. This was a careful, deliberate plan, unfolding exactly how and when it was supposed to. The message of salvation had an origin story, a street address, you could say. It had to come from somewhere.
Okay, so here's the crucial pivot. While the plan started with a specific group of people, it was never, ever meant to end with them. The plan was always meant to be universal from the very beginning.
This right here is the key difference we have to get. Salvation came from the Jews because they were the chosen channel, the delivery system. But it was never intended to be for the Jews alone. They weren't the only ones invited to the party. They were just the ones asked to send out the invitations.
And how do we know this for sure? Because Jesus says it himself in the very next breath. Right after saying salvation is of the Jews, he completely blows the doors off the whole idea of worship. He says the time is here, right now, when it's not about your location or your ethnicity. What matters is your heart, worshiping in spirit and in truth.
And this wasn't some new idea he just came up with. No way. The plan to go global was baked into the blueprint from day one. It was always meant to burst past the borders of one nation and reach every single person on the planet.
In fact, you can go all the way back to Abraham, the father of the Jewish faith, and you'll find this promise right there at the start. The blessing God gave him wasn't supposed to stop with him. It was always intended to overflow and bless all peoples on earth.
So how did this promise, which got so clear during a conversation at a well in Samaria, actually begin to spread across the whole world? Well, the jump from a local promise to a global faith was, to put it mildly, explosive.
You can literally trace the path. It starts with that ancient promise to Abraham. It hits a major pivot point in conversations just like the one with the Samaritan woman. The real spark catches fire at Pentecost, and that ignites a mission to the Gentiles, the non-Jewish world, that is still going on today.
And at Pentecost, the movement kicked off right where it was supposed to, among the Jewish people. On that single day, about 3,000 people joined the faith. The channel was working perfectly, getting ready to launch the message out to the world.
And then, just like Jesus said it would, the message broke out. It reached an Ethiopian official, a Roman centurion named Cornelius, and through people like the Apostle Paul, it began its journey to every nation, fulfilling that mission to reach the ends of the earth.
So when we circle back to that puzzling statement, it starts to look a lot clearer, doesn't it? It was never about exclusion. It was about origin. In His incredible design, God used a specific people with a specific history to launch a truly universal invitation that is open to absolutely everyone.
Which brings this whole thing right back to us today. That conversation at the well wasn't just a moment in history. It's a living question for you and me. If worship isn't about a specific building or being from a certain background anymore, but it's about spirit and truth, what does that actually mean for how we live? Now that is something worth thinking about.